Hi. So, in this video, I want to talk about self-education. So, for most of my life, I was biased against self-education. I didn't think much of it. I thought you had to be at a big school, a big name school, a prestigious school in order to learn, in order to grow intellectually. So, for example, I didn't think much of somebody, self-taught, self-education, right? Picking up a classic novel and reading it on your own. I thought you had to have a stamp of approval. By that, what I mean is, it was always much better, right, to go to a fancy college and learn the classic literature or classic text, or, it doesn't have to be fiction, it could be nonfiction, under, that school system where, you take classes with famous professors, right? And that was my thinking for the vast majority of my life. And I didn't really change that thinking and kind of reevaluate it until I was well in my 30s, okay? And I say this, again, not to knock on colleges, not to say, colleges are bad. I love college. I encourage you to go to college and, do your best. And, if you want to go, I encourage you to go. And, as I said, one of my, if I could make one tweak looking back of my college career is that I would take more risk, right? More intellectual risk, more business risk, more career risk by just trying different things and trying to make something off that, trying to figure out what I was good at and, what I like to do, rather than just blindly, mostly blindly, trying to get good grades, trying to get into the best law school I could get into, because that seemed like the prestigious thing to do, if you will. Okay, this might sound obvious to some of you, but in my experience, it's really not, and I think it's important to stress this. Just because you have that fancy 4-year degree, or maybe it took you 5 years, or some public schools it takes 6, right? Just because you have that piece of paper that says you went to this fancy school, fancy college, you should not, and this is obvious point, but it's not, okay? Judging by, many of, what I did and what my friends have done, and, what I, see, among other people and in the media, among young people, that you could stop learning because you learned everything you need to know during those 4 years at that fancy college. No, that is absolutely not true, okay? Self-education, it has, I don't know why I had I didn't think much of it, and I think it's because of this. I really never read anything on my own. I read some, but I didn't, pursue things that I was interested in on my own. I didn't really start to do that until late in my life. When I say late in my life, I mean like after college and after law school, when I was well into my 20s, right? And that's why, because I've never done much of self-education, on my own, that's why I never thought much of it, because I never done it, right? But then I realized, when I was still working at a law firm, you know what? I haven't read a lot of books on my own because I wanted to read them. I read so many books because I had to read them, or I thought I had to read them because I was taking those classes, right? So that's what I'm saying, okay? You could graduate number one in your class at Harvard, okay? And all that education, it's a good background, I'm sure you learn a lot of things. That could pale in comparison to one book that you pick up while, walking through the airport. That's what I'm saying, right? That one book that, none of your classes, at Harvard could have possibly assigned, right? That could start an intellectual journey that leads you to your life vocation, right? To leads you to a new passion in life. Because after you read that book, you read blogs, you read magazines, you read many more books, right? And you start to talking to people, and you start to investigate that career or intellectual area or whatever that is. And that book doesn't have to be a quote unquote serious book. It doesn't have to be a classic, literature, right? It doesn't have to be a fiction book. It could be a nonfiction book. It could be a sort of a cheesy self-help book. It could be a car magazine. It could be anything that starts you on a journey that you feel passionate about, because you say, aha, I found my line in life. I found my vocation. I found my calling for life, right? So what I'm urging you to guard against is, just because you graduated from the fancy schools in the world does not mean your education ends. It starts right there. In fact, after you graduate from college, you should say to yourself, okay, since, I no longer have to chase grades, and, I could read whatever I want, you should read whatever you want. And that's when you really start to explore, okay? But, and this goes back to the dominant strategy. don't you think it's such a waste to delay that self-discovery process until you leave school, right? Why not start it now, right? I know a lot of you guys, especially those ambitious students, high school students out there who are so busy, trying to keep, maintain your high grades and trying to get high test scores and doing all your activities and running around so that you look good for college admissions committees. Even if it's just 20-30 minutes a day, look into, pursue, read about the topics that you're interested in, okay? Because there's a saying, I forget the exact quote, there's a saying that goes something like, the things that you read when you don't have to, the things that you read when you don't have to is what you become, okay? And I think that's really true. I mean, if you think about it, you're not gonna become a literature professor after reading Moby Dick, a book that I like, but, I wasn't particularly thrilled to read it. And when you read something because you have to read it because as part of an assignment, is not going to reflect what your true inner reflects and what your desires are, right? I mean, yes, there is value in having the discipline to do things that you're supposed to do, even if that's not something necessarily that you want to do. Life is about doing things. A lot of times, or especially when you're an adult, having responsibilities that you rather not do, but that doesn't mean you should always you shouldn't do it. All I'm saying is always make time for the things that you're interested in, so you could explore and pursue it. Okay? Never look down on the books and the magazines or the blogs that you read in your own time because you want to, because at the back of your mind, we're so used to being trained this way, following directions and being a good student, that the things that you do because you want to do, you have to guard against, downplaying that and saying, okay, this isn't really important because I'm actually having fun, reading this and I'm really enjoying the topic. Whereas the things that I'm supposed to do, like those AP classes or those college courses, those books that I'm assigned, even though I don't like it, they're the important things that I'm supposed to do. So I'm gonna downplay the things that I actually enjoy, and I feel like, I feel guilty about, wasting time pursuing my interests because they're not really important and they're not, they don't really count, if you will, right? So I want you to guard against that. Okay, do the things that you need to do, assignments, whatever, right? But never ever downplay, okay, the things that you read because you want to read, the things that you pursue because you want to pursue them, okay? That's where it's highly likely that you will find, it doesn't have to turn into a career. You could find intellectual curiosity that will stay with you and that will make your life so much more fun, interesting, and exciting. And you don't have to wait until you leave a formal school setting, okay? You could start when you're in junior high, elementary school, high school, and don't stop. You learn continuously throughout your life, okay? Thanks, guys. Bye.